Last point, Breonna Taylor's death. Breonna Taylor's death was murder. People were outraged. Yes, because it's outrageous. If a person was murdered, then there's a murderer, right? That's how it works. And the underlying police action should never have happened in the first place. We at least have to learn from these horrific situations. And God forbid anything like that happened in this state. June 12th, I announced an executive order because we understand this situation now. And I announced that every jurisdiction must come up with a plan that reimagines their public safety function. And they must pass it into law by April 1, or they won't receive funding from the state of New York. There is no greater sanction. None of these jurisdictions can survive without funding from the state of New York. April 1 coincides with our budget date. We're now October. Why? Because they have to acknowledge and resolve the tensions that are there. And that's not going to happen unless you have a quote-unquote collaborative, which means put everyone at the table, raise the concerns, and resolve them. Because this is not Breonna Taylor or George Floyd. It's been going on for decades and decades. You may have reached the point of boiling where people are just saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. But it has been going on for decades. It's not going to go away on its own. And there's real tension between the community and the police. Everybody knows it. Everybody feels it. What do you think? It's going to resolve automatically? What do you have, the Trump theory on COVID? It'll magically disappear. It'll be gone by Easter. The president was in denial about COVID. I believe he was actually lying about COVID. But lying, denial, does not work. These tensions are not going to go away until you resolve them. Well, the police feel this. Well, the community feels this. Well, the police feel this. The community feels this. I know. Not resolving them helps no one. They just fester. And actually, they get worse. The more they fester, the worse it gets. And that's what you're seeing. And then it explodes every time you have an incident. The goal here is to learn and change, right? Progressive city, progressive state. What does that mean? It means, yes, we go through bad things, but we take these situations as an opportunity to change and to progress. That's what we try to do. Rev Sharpton, demonstration, organize the public spirit so you can make change with legislation, and then you get to reconciliation. The public outrage is to motivate the body politic so the government makes change. It's not demonstration for the sake of demonstration. It's not demonstration as a vent, as a catharsis. It's demonstration to express to government, we have to change. And I know that's the status quo, and I know it's hard, but government, we have to change. That's the point of the demonstration. Otherwise, it's a pointless effort that only makes people more upset and more tense. There's a productive point in protest, which is so that government gets the message. Okay, we got the message. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Eric Garner, Amadou Diallo. We got the message. All right, now make the progressive change. That's where we're at. They weren't doing it. I said, you have to, or you don't get any state money. 146 jurisdictions in this state have already sat down at the table and started the reimagining process. 146 jurisdictions. They have started. Starting is good. Because once you start to talk about it, that's the first step. You're putting people at the table. You're talking about it rather than throwing stones, rather than throwing bricks, rather than being destructive, rather than being frustrated. That's good. That's good. Do it. Start. By the way, you need a plan done by April anyway. It has to be passed into law, which means you have to go through the legislative body. You have to go through the city council. That's going to take time. You need it by April 1. You have to start now anyway. And now is the time to do it. If you don't do it, everybody gets hurt. New York City, shootings with victims up 103%. Well, we think it's because the police are doing this. We think it's because the police are doing that. We think it's because the community is doing this. Who knows? Except we all know it's negative and it's bad and people are dying. And the overwhelming majority of those victims are black and brown. And everybody has a sense that crime is worse and the city is not as safe. At the same time that we're trying to bring New York City back from COVID, right? So it only makes things worse. Well, maybe it's going to get better on its own. It's getting worse. Trump on COVID. It's going to go away like a miracle. It's going to go away when the weather gets warm. It's going to go away by Easter. No, you don't wish these things away. It's called government action and leadership. Hank Newsom put out a statement this morning, Hawk Newsom, from a Black Lives Matter group saying, let's sit down at the table and figure this out. It's time to find a path forward. We've had the demonstration chapter. You have the executive order saying you have to come up with a plan. Step up and lead. 146 jurisdictions are doing it. Why isn't New York City doing it? The mayor can lead it. City council president can lead it. Controller could lead it. Public advocate could lead it. If none of them want to lead it, I will find someone to lead it. Just tell me you don't want to do it or you can't do it. But this is wholly unacceptable. On behalf of everybody who lives in New York City, it's wholly unacceptable. And it's not who we are and it's not what we do. We didn't run from COVID. We don't run. We don't deny. It doesn't work. We have a problem in New York City when it comes to crime. That is a fact. That is a fact. It is the perception, it's the reality. It's not going to get better on its own. Well, people are polarized. Yeah, I know. I know. It's hard. I know. Government matters in this environment. It's not a normal environment where you can play your normal politics and politicians dance. It's time to lead. What government does in the age of COVID is the matter between life and death. What the New York government did is the matter between life and death for thousands of people. What the U.S. government did is the matter of life and death for tens of thousands of people. 1,000 people die in the United States. 1 in China. Why? Because their government did a better job. That's why. Only 2 people died in New York State. while the rate is going up all across the country. Why? Because New Yorkers did a better job. That's why. The crime problem in New York City doesn't get better on its own. We do better because we're New York tough, and we're smart, and we're united, and we're disciplined, and we're loving.